Joining us right now live from our newsroom is a man who spent the last year or so in Libya working with a Washington, D.C. group that helps countries as they transition from one government to another. Josh Hills of Albany left Libya in July, right after their democratic elections. Josh, thank you very much for being with us here tonight.
Good evening, Greg. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Let's get right into this. How were things in Libya? How stable was it when you left?
Well, I certainly was much more optimistic just a few months ago, right after I left, right after they had an election. There have been some problems in Benghazi and in the east for a few months now, but this is certainly something I never would have expected.
Now, obviously, I assume you were working mostly in Tripoli, but I think you told me you were in Benghazi as well. You've been to that consulate. You know it, right?
Yeah, I arrived in Benghazi the day after Tripoli had been liberated, actually, by the rebel forces, and I spent a few months there. During that time, I got to meet Ambassador Stevens several times, and I have indeed been to the compound that was attacked.
There was some talk about the security there. It might be a bit flimsy, not what you might expect for a consulate in the Mideast. Any sign of that on your part?
At the time I was there, there was certainly a much more feeling of goodwill, I think, than you see now. And you know, it wasn't. There were guards there when I would go, but certainly wasn't what you would expect. Certainly, I've been in some other countries where there was far more security procedures in place.
And everyone's stressing, and you mentioned that you knew Ambassador Stevens, that he was helping the Libyans, that he was a key cog in their, taking over the government and overthrowing the despot that was there.
That is sort of the sad irony of this tragedy, is that he was certainly one of the best friends to that country. As you say, he'd been there throughout the revolution. I got to know him even before he was an ambassador. He was very much believed in what he was doing and was very optimistic about the future there.
And from what you've seen, is it fair to say, I read this in the New York Times today, that despite the U.S. supporting all the Arab Spring uprisings, that there is still in many corners a deep-seated anti-U.S. feeling right now?
Well, I think, in this situation you saw it was a small group that had attacked the compound, I think 20 or 30 people. I don't think the problem is that they have popular support so much as that they're armed, and you have a dangerous mix of sort of a lawless, stateless country with this proliferation of arms. And, a group like this could easily cause a lot of trouble in that environment.
All right, Josh, and just quickly to wrap up, what happens now in your estimation?
Well, I do think it's going to take a while to repair some of the damage that's been done by this. But certainly, I don't think you can abandon the effort there. Most Libyans wanted democracy, as you saw in their election. There's a very large turnout. So I don't think we can give up on it, but certainly we have to be more conscious of security concerns there.
All right, sounds good. Josh Hills, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work, and I'm sure we'll talk to you in the future.
Take care.
Thanks, Josh.